One of the guys opens the window for the security office, and my picture's on the wall. I said, "You see that guy up there? That's me. That's my wanted poster." I said, "I'm a fugitive. Arrest me."
Investigators say Afzal Bobby Khan, he went from being on the Real Housewives of New Jersey to the FBI's most wanted list.
20 cars turned to 40 cars, 40 to 50, and I'm working from my dining room table. And outside my driveway, I had like $3 million worth of cars. I tipped $1,000, $2,000 before I got to my table to sit down and eat. That's the kind of life I built for myself. I was in your face. The perfect storm begins. The day of my grand opening party.
Victoria Motor Group, with over 10 years of quality service you can trust.
I got served with a lawsuit for $1 million. I said, if I go to the FBI, he goes, "You go to the FBI, there's going to be press out here tomorrow because you throw parties with celebrities. You get celebrity clients." He goes, "You appear on reality TV shows." He goes, "Your name is destroyed tomorrow." At 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Monday, state police, local police, sheriff's department, out my house with a warrant for arson, terroristic threats, harassment, and all kinds of other charges. And the guy on the right says to me, he goes, "If you give this guy $100,000 in cash, when you get charged and your case comes into my courtroom, I'll make sure you get bail, and in 6 months, I'll make sure I dismiss your case." That man right there was a judge. And I walked out of there, I grabbed my lawyer by his neck, and I slammed him up against, there was a 911 Turbo parked there. I said, "But at this point, I don't know if this is a setup or if this is real. But either which way, I'm screwed." He said, "Bobby, do you know any non-extradition countries? Your life as you know it just ended." I said, "I got a wife, I got kids, I got everything." He said, "You got nothing." At 2 o'clock that morning, while the FBI is watching my main house, I had a Yukon in the house next door, and I pulled out that Yukon, and I got in the Yukon, and I drove to Canada. That was the longest drive home. It's like when you're about to face the executioner. I'm in Dubai, can't call my kids, can't call my wife. I have no job, I have no business. I got, at this point, $9,200 in my pocket after 27 times of trying to surrender with no luck. Went on Fox News, no luck. The U.S. attorney wouldn't even respond to Fox News, wouldn't even give him a statement.
My little one was only 7 months when we went overseas. Sophia was 5 when we went. She had just started kindergarten. We were struggling so bad, so bad. I was putting rocks in water bottles for my baby to play with. I had to make them clothes because I couldn't buy them clothes. That was a long 5 years.
I walked into an embassy. I'm a fugitive from justice. I'm here to surrender. They told me, "You can't." 2 days later, I go back. I said, "I want to surrender." They said, "You can't do that here." I called my friends in London, and they said, "Your house was just raided. They didn't find you. Well, you should watch the news. You're the FBI's most wanted fugitive." What?
People look at him and they see what I saw when I met him. You know, but that's what he puts out. You think you know this man? You have no fucking clue.
You're in the parking garage and he tells you, "Do you know any non-extradition countries?"
Yeah.
What is a non-extradition country?
A non-extradition country is where basically they don't extradite you back to the United States if you're charged with a crime in the United States. So basically, say you were charged with a crime in the U.S. and you got to that country, the U.S. can't ask them to send you back. You can live there freely because they don't extradite you.
So what does this mean for you in this moment?
So first off, I'm processing. I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Let me break down the scenario." He goes, "You're going to get charged with state charges. You're going to get charged with federal charges for wire fraud." He goes, they're going to seize your assets, whatever's left. He goes, "You're not going to have any money to pay for lawyers." He goes, "While you're in there, all these people that wrote out these FBI reports are now going to solidify it by filing civil lawsuits against you. The bank's going to hit you with a civil lawsuit." And he goes, "How are you going to fight 30 different things at once?" He goes, "You're sitting in a jail cell. They're not going to give you bail." He goes, "So you're not going to be able to get out." He goes, "How are you going to support your family Your wife doesn't work. Your kids are young. So how do you support your family? How do you take care and fight legal fees when you have no money? I said, I got a wife, I got kids, I got everything. He said, you got nothing. He goes, you can't take anything with you. He goes, you can't even tell your wife. I said, I got a newborn. I got a 12-year-old. I got a 5-year-old. He said, if she loves you, she'll figure it out and she'll be there for you. I said, but what do I tell her? He said, that's up to you. You have to figure that one out. He goes, but you can't tell her where you're going, what you're doing. I said, when does this have to happen? He goes, now. I said, what do you mean now? He goes, today. He goes, they're coming for you, and they're going to come for you hard. He goes, this is payback for all those years. He goes, you walked away. He goes, you threw it in their face. You got flashy. He goes, they don't like flashy people. He goes, they don't like Muslims that are flashy. He goes, you're the son of immigrants that came to this country and lived the American dream. He goes, that FBI agent has to sit here and go home in that same Ford Explorer every day wearing that $200 suit from Macy's. He goes, he doesn't like you. He doesn't like to see you succeed. He goes, why would they want you to clean up this mess? They take you down. They get headlines. He goes, but they don't have to go. They're not going to take down the Toyota dealer or the Honda dealer because nobody cares. A celebrity car dealer screws over people and doesn't give them titles for Rolls Royces and Lamborghini. That's a salacious headline. All of a sudden, they're going to pad their resumes. They're going to beat their chest with you. He goes, this is my last conversation with you. He goes, you leave. And he goes, I will do what I can to help you while you're gone and try to clean up this mess. So I said, how long do I go away for? He goes, I don't know. He goes, at the right time, you'll know. That was the longest drive home. It's like when you're about to face the execution. The FBI had a tail on me. I call them the Federal Bureau of Idiots because they're idiots. The media has taught us to think that these guys are just genius super cops. It's just a bunch of idiots working there. They have no clue what they're doing, and they just beat their big old chest to think that they're better than everybody because they have all the tools at their disposal, and then they can't even use those tools properly. Now, I'm just a little old me, car dealer. They couldn't even figure out where I lived. They're following me. They got a tail on me. So everywhere I go, these two idiots in this government-issued Charger, they're following me. So I leave my lawyer from the parking garage. They happen to be sitting outside the parking garage, and they followed me to the house. I like to think 10 steps ahead. That's all I always do. I may be having a conversation with you, but I'm thinking, how are you going to screw me a year from now? So I like to make sure I cover my bases. So when I was coming home, I didn't pull into the house that I lived in. I had two homes right next door to each other. I pulled into the house that they knew about. And they parked their car right out front. I walked in the house, I walked out the backyard, I walked by the pool, flipped open the fence, slid in, went to the next backyard, and was home. I said hi to my wife, I looked at my kids, and I walked into my home office and I sat down for a second. And all of a sudden, your life just everything comes tumbling down on you. It's like a ton of bricks. You look at your wife, you look at your kids, you look around your home, and you know that in a matter of hours, none of this is going to be around you. You don't know what is going to happen to you in your life. You know one thing, you're not going to wake up in your bed tomorrow. You're not going to get a chance to kiss your kids tomorrow. Either I'm going to get arrested and I'm going to be in jail, or I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to wake up in my normal life tomorrow. My life, as you know, it just ended. And now, how do I tell my wife that I'm not going to be here without telling her I'm not going to be here? Because plausible deniability. Because I need to protect her, because I love her. I need to protect my children, because I can't have anything happen to her. But I also have something else. I have a 12-year-old daughter from my first wife, who I only get to see on the weekends. And I love her, and I love all my kids. And the thing is, I know my kids that I have with my current wife are going to be okay. But my relationship with my ex-wife is not a good one. It's never been a good one. I got married when I was 19. I got divorced when I was 20, but I don't regret it because of my daughter. My ex-wife and I never saw eye to eye. And she badmouthed me to my kid all the time. But I spoiled my daughter, and I did everything I could to be the best dad I could be. But I can't just sit there and go to her and say, hey, by the way, either I'm going to be gone tomorrow or I'm going to be in prison. So I had told my ex-wife about a week ago that I'm having some problems with my business. So there's going to be headlines, and to just, shield my child from it. And obviously, like everything else, my ex-wife decides to bash me and badmouth me to my children. So what she had done was she told my kid that she couldn't see me. So I can't even get on the phone and talk to my daughter at this point. I can't take my daughter with me, because if I take her with me, now I'm facing kidnapping charges because I have split custody. I can't pick up the phone and call her and tell her what's going on because she's going to rat me out to the FBI. And how do I leave my child behind? I walked into my office, and I opened my safe, and I had $80,000 left in my safe. Pulled out the $80,000, and I took $10,000 and I put it in my pocket. And I went to my wife, and I handed her the money, and I said, here, hold on to this. I asked her a question, and I said, do you love me? She said, of course I love you. I said, do you trust me? She said, yeah. I said, well, you can't ask me any questions. I can't tell you it. But what I have to do is to protect our family, is to protect me and our children and you. But I can't tell you because it's just plausible deniability. And she cried, as anybody would. And I looked at my kids, and I didn't know when I would see my kids again. And it was, if you're a parent, seeing your kids so innocent playing and knowing that their life as you know it is just going to change. My kids used to go to school in fancy cars. My kids had every toy they could ever imagine. My kids didn't need for anything. And now, I was broke. A lot of people are going to watch this and say, well, you had $80,000. But for my life, $80,000 was broke because my business was millions of dollars. And that $80,000 wouldn't even pay a fraction of my lawyer fees. Each lawyer is easy $250 to $500 grand. I'm broke. At 2 o'clock that morning, while the FBI is watching my main house, I had a Yukon in the house next door. And I also had I used to own the 89 Batmobile, the Michael Keaton Batmobile. And that was the only other car sitting in the garage. And I pulled out that Yukon, and I got in the Yukon, and I drove to Canada. And I got to Canada, I went to Toronto International Airport. And when I got to the airport, I picked up the phone, and I did business all over the world. I had friends, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, China, Russia, everywhere. I called people in Qatar, and I called people in the UAE. And I said, this is my situation. And they said, get on a plane and come here. I got off the phone, and I looked at the ticket counters. There was Etihad counter right there, which was United Arab Emirates. It was going to go to Abu Dhabi. I just walked right over to it. I paid $900, and I bought a one-way ticket in economy class to Abu Dhabi. I got on the plane, and I landed in Abu Dhabi. When I landed in Abu Dhabi, I had no clue what I was going to do. I had nothing lined up. All I knew was I had to get to Dubai to see my friends. And I took a taxi from Abu Dhabi to Dubai. It was about a 45-minute drive. And I got to Dubai, and I checked into a motel actually. And I called my friends. I'm here. They're like, okay, well, if you need anything, let us know. But you should probably call your friends in London. They got something to tell you. I called my friends in London, and they said, your house was just raided. They didn't figure out that Stephanie and the kids were in the house next door, but they raided the wrong house, and they didn't find you. Well, you should watch the news. You're the FBI's most wanted fugitive. What? Yep, for $865,000, I just became the FBI's most wanted fugitive. They showed up to my house at 6 o'clock in the morning. I think it was like 30 or 40 FBI agents plus local police. They showed up, press in tow. They were trying to make a spectacle of this whole thing. And leading up to this, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. The 30 days leading up to me leaving, I knew they were going to come for me one way or the other. And I knew that they like to make a spectacle because everything the FBI always does is by the book. It's the same thing. I can literally write every press release that they write. I can tell you exactly how they're going to show up to your house, what they're going to say. So I knew that they were going to show up to my house at 6 o'clock in the morning. I would wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day and get dressed and showered because I wasn't going to allow them to arrest me and pull me out of my house in my underwear. So when they did raid my house, they raided the house, they didn't find me. Then they figured out that I went to Canada, and from Canada, I was gone. So now they got egg on their face because they showed up with the press. And the press is like, well, what happened here? The guy's not here? He left the country? They look like idiots, which they are. So that afternoon, they made me the FBI's most wanted fugitive. So while my kids are here, the prosecutor, the U.S. attorney, who's an asshole, scumbag piece of shit, wants to go after my wife. My wife has never worked a day in her life at my business. She got married to me, became a housewife. She does not know anything about my business. I'm the kind of guy, I'm old school. I don't bring work home.
A couple weeks after he left, I was to my limit. I didn't know what to do, where to go, how to handle everything.
So they want to go after her because they can't get me, so they feel like they're going to railroad her into telling them where I'm at. So they're threatening to arrest her, they're threatening this, and they're doing everything. And obviously, I know what's happening because I have people that are watching. I called my friends in London and said, you got to get her out of the country. My friends in London called her up and said, look, you're going through a lot right now. You need to get away. We're sending you an airline ticket. Get on a plane, come to London for a couple days, unwind, clear your head.
And they asked me, why don't you come here, bring the girls, get away. Just get away, have some downtime, breathe. So I took them up on it. And it was when I got there that I found out that I was going to Dubai. I felt, all right, hold on, I have to go back. They didn't want to let me on the plane the first time in Newark because they were trying to find out if they could arrest me. I wound up getting on the phone with my lawyer at the time. The district attorney said, don't you get on the plane, don't you test him. Now me, I guess this is where Bobby and I really get along. I'm like, tell him to fucking try me, okay? Watch me. And I hung up the phone. And I tried to get on the plane, they wouldn't. So me and my 5-year-old and my 7-month-old in the rain had to walk across in Newark. The hotel was like all the way across, the closest hotel, right? So I'm walking with them in tow. Had to stay at the hotel that night. I go back the next day. They got me like in the room next to where you board. They were waiting to see if they could get a warrant to arrest me. And then finally, they let me on the plane because they couldn't get one. So we took a flight. I got off the plane and I lost it. I just lost it. I just bawled my eyes out because I was lost. You know what I mean? Like part of me felt a freedom that I hadn't had in a long time. And I'm not talking about a freedom from Bobby. Something totally different. Yet I didn't know what the future held for me or my children. Nothing. Then at Heathrow, they stopped me because I'm a single mother now at this point, and I didn't have permission from my children's father to take them on a plane. So we waited there for about an hour and a half until they finally let us through. They had to check and see something if there were like custody papers, anything like that. Then I got through. I met my in-laws. And I broke down. And honestly, it was actually just later that day. I was back at the airport again. They told me, you're getting on another plane and you're going to Dubai. So it was actually 2 more planes. I got on that plane, I wound up going to Oman, and then from Oman to Dubai.
I'm in Dubai, can't call my kids, can't call my wife. I have no job, I have no business. I got, at this point, $9,200 in my pocket, and I'm spending money every day for a hotel room. It's a little motel, but it's still Dubai. I had to get myself an iPad and a cheap phone, and I would go to Dubai Mall and sit there and use their Wi-Fi. I can't call anybody home, so I'm in a new country. Yes, I did business here. I know people here, but what do I do? Meanwhile, my kids are there. The FBI is hounding my wife, trying to figure out where I'm at. I need to get my wife and kids out of there. I need to get my life back. And it's like, you have so many questions with no answers. It's like you're in a tunnel and there's no light. You don't know what it's going to take to get to the other end of that tunnel. So I literally, if anybody's been to Dubai, their main highway is Sheikh Zayed Road. I took a taxi one day and I would walk up and down Sheikh Zayed Road, and I would go into every car dealer looking for a job. I'm here looking for a job. Well, the problem is they Google you instantly, and all of a sudden you're wanted. Yes, I'm in a non-extradition country, but they're not going to hire you. After we lost our son, not too long after that, Stephanie got pregnant again with our daughter, our youngest daughter now, Lila. We were blessed with her in 2014 when all this was happening.
You know, it's weird because my little one was only 7 months when we went overseas. So we call her our Dubai baby because she knew nothing else. She knew nothing of America. She knew nothing of Jersey, nothing. Sophia was 5 when we went. She had just started kindergarten. In fact, we left mid-November. So she was only in school for 2.5 months. I think it was a lot harder on her. Lila, it was normal. You know, I realized very early on I had to homeschool them because being that Sophia had already started school, I couldn't let time go. I was never good in school myself, so I was a bit worried, but I did my research. I created an entire room just for school. I filled the wall with words and spelling and vocabulary and everything I could think of. And we did school 5 days a week. And then, you know, as she got older and Lila started reading at about 3 years old, and I got them school desks, and I had a desk, and we did the whole thing. So it was a school setting. It wasn't like, you know, I didn't want them to feel at home while at school. You know what I mean? Like, you got to separate it. But the problem for me was that I could only take them so far. Like, for example, math was my worst, right? To this day, my children are not good in math. I could not give them what they needed in math early on. They are far superior to everything else. Sophia skipped 7th grade. Lila was gifted and talented. Probably the best compliment I've ever got from one of my children was the other day. Sophia said, "I think that's why I'm doing so well is because of your homeschooling." And, you know, I mean, it warms my heart to know that I did something good. I don't feel like I failed, even though other people gave me a really hard time, and I lost family members over it. I had people threatening that they wanted to take my kids away because I was such a horrible mother. How could I do this to them? In my eyes, you keep a family together. We love each other. We always have loved each other. Why would I break it up? We were probably only there maybe 6 months at one point, 6 or 8 months. And we were struggling so bad that I was putting rocks in water bottles for my baby to play with. I had to make them clothes because I couldn't buy them clothes. I was even taking things of mine and cutting them down and down and down so that they had new things to wear. everything was a struggle. You don't know if somebody's looking for you. They're just going to come up and take your husband away, and then what happens? That was a long 5 years. And earlier on, I had told Bobby, I said, by the time Sophia is 10, I need her in a regular school. That was so important to me because I couldn't progress her past that point. And it just so happened that we were home when she was 10.
I walked into one dealership, place was called Deals on Wheels. And they had some of the most expensive cars in the world. They had 3 showrooms, and I met the owner and I said, I'm looking for a job, and I've been in the car business my whole life. They hired me on the spot. They hired me as a general manager, and the pay wasn't great, but it was something. At least I was earning money instead of just blowing through cash. But the problem is, I'm an illegal citizen. How it works there is, in order to, you get a visa, you got to get a work visa. So basically, so somebody hires you to get your visa, you have to go to your home country's embassy, fill out the paperwork, then they take that paperwork to their embassy, and then they get you a visa. Well, I can't walk into a U.S. embassy as a fugitive, so now I'm an illegal immigrant. So I can only work for so long. I always say my son's looking out for me, and he became my guardian angel. When I was there, my first week, this man comes in, and he's an Arab guy, and he walks in and he goes, how much for that Aventador? I told him it was $500,000. And he says, how much for the Azure? And I said, it was $400,000, you know, and it was actually an Azure and something else. So he said, all right, I'll take it, just like that. He says, I'm going to send my driver in, and my driver's going to pay for it and whatever not. So I'm like, okay, so let's chit-chat with him. And the guy talks about his car collection and this and that. And next day, somebody comes in and drops a duffel bag of cash, buys a car. His brother comes in, and his brother meets me, and he calls me, he goes, you from Jersey? Shit, the guy Googled me, right? He says, you sound like Tony Soprano. And back then, I used to have hair that slicked back, and I was balding, and, you know, I'm chubby. He goes, you sound like Tony Soprano. He goes, I'm going to call you Tony. So I'm like, great. So I said, yeah, I'm from Jersey. So he goes, you know, why don't you come over to our house? Bring your family along too. We build a relationship. And they got to know my situation. And one day I'm sitting at that office, and a driver pulls up and comes in and drops a set of keys for a Range Rover on my desk. I said, what's this? He says, call such and such. I'm not going to mention names out of respect. I said, what's with the Range Rover? He goes, it's yours. I said, what do you mean it's yours? He goes, I understand your situation you're going through. Instead of paying for a rental car and taxis, drive it. He goes, I got hundreds of cars. I don't need this. He goes, drive it as long as you want. He goes, you don't like this one? We'll give you something else to drive. So then obviously my employer said, he goes, you can't work here. You're an illegal. I can't have you working here.
I think overall, it definitely bonded us closer together. He and I have been through more things that a lot of people will be in their entire lifetime, you know? And he and I are the type of people where we don't resent each other for what happens in life. We know that life happens. Life happens. You know, before I met him, I had a crappy life. My whole life, I struggled. I did what I had to do to survive. To this day, I tell my kids, my dad always said, you do what you got to do. And that I live by. You do what you got to do. And you make life work. And that's what we did. People look at him and they see what I saw when I met him. You know, but that's what he puts out. You think you know this man? You have no fucking clue. You have no clue. You will never know who he really is. I can guarantee you this. I am the only person on the planet that does. I am the only person that knows who he really is. My husband. He's sweet. He's caring. He's generous. He's kind. He goes out of his way. He would give you the shirt off of his back. He helps animals. He's actually over in Dubai. He became a huge animal person where he never was ever. But if he could adopt every animal, he would. He really would. And I'd be right there, be like, come on, let's go.
Now, we were staying in a hotel. We were living in a one-bedroom hotel room in the worst part of the city. Dubai really doesn't have bad parts, but still, it was one of the cheapest parts of the city. We only have limited money. So we literally, every night, we would have soup and turkey sandwiches because that's the cheapest food we can afford. Just 3 months ago, I can walk into any restaurant and order whatever I wanted. And here I am struggling. And these people that don't know me took mercy on us. So now I got fired because I can't work as an illegal immigrant. So they said, Bobby, why don't you do this? We're going to find you a home because I can't rent a home because I'm an illegal immigrant. So now, in order to rent a home, either it has to be their home or it's got to be in their name or something. So they got me a home. We walked into this house and it was like 9 o'clock at night one night. We have no furniture. We left everything behind. All our relatives took all our shit. She came with 2 suitcases. I went with 1 suitcase. That's the only thing we had. We paid $30 for a couch. We paid another $40 for a dining table. And we went to the grocery store and we got inflatable furniture. And we moved into a home. It was, at this point, this was in an area where it wasn't developed yet. It was all sand. It was literally sand all around us. And this was like a set of like 10 homes, condos, in the middle of the desert. And we finally had a home after months of being in a hotel room. And these people paid for it, and they paid the rent for the whole year. I don't know why they did that. And, that night when we moved in, I've never been an animal person. And there was a black and white cat, looked very rough. And he comes to the front door and he's hungry. And it's obviously 100 degrees outside. So I didn't have anything in the house. We had cereal. I went out and I put cereal for him. And the next day, he brought his friend. And there's now 2 cats. And then there's 3 cats. So I ran out to the grocery store and I just opened up, a bag of cat food and I just dumped it out there. And I sat there and I watched these cats eat. And they just looked beat up and worn out. And I looked at that black and white cat and I named him Oreo. And I said, this guy is like me. Life beat him up. And he's just worn out. He's tired. But I said, somebody help me out. I'm going to pay it forward. That cat, for the next 5 years, came to our house every day, twice a day, and I fed him. And that cat turned into 60 cats that used to come to our house every day, and we would feed them. Dubai has they have a stray cat population of over 4 million cats. And I became an animal person. I rescued so many animals. We wouldn't have groceries, but I would make sure that the cats were fed. Because, you know what? I said, the reason we're surviving in another country as fugitives and we have food on the table is because these animals. And that's what I believed. So these people helped us out. And they said, look, you come up with any invention, you want to do a business, we'll support you, we'll do whatever. In the meantime, I'm trying to fight for my freedom. So I go to the press back home and I itemized everything. And I said, look, this is what happened. This is the story. Nobody wants to listen to it. Everybody wants to publish all these accounts of people, but nobody wants to hear the facts. Here's the facts. What I did before I left, because I know how the FBI works, and I knew that they were going to raid my house and they're going to raid my office and they were going to take my files and I'd never be able to clear my name. So what I did was I got a box truck and I emptied my house and my office of all the files and I shipped them out of state and I put them in a storage facility under somebody else's name. I contacted my lawyer that defended me in Alabama years ago. And I said to him, I said, Jimmy, and he goes, why did you call me? I said, I had 4 other lawyers. I figured I was in good hands. He said, all you have to do is call me. He goes, I'm going to take your case. And he said, I'm not taking any money from you. He goes, I'm going to take your case. And he goes, I'm going to get you home. I said, there's a storage facility with all my files. Get them to yourself. And he took all my files. And then I started going through everything with him digitally. Like I had an encrypted email I'd reach out to him on, and an encrypted phone. And I started going public. And then my lawyer starts reaching out to the U.S. attorney and saying, the guy wants to come home, he'll surrender. And the U.S. attorney wants nothing to do with it. Then they go on American Greed and they say, we don't know where he's at. We think he's here, we think he's there. They get people to go on American Greed and make all these claims. Nobody vetted a single claim. Every single one of those people, and as we'll put up the documentation, made these claims about me. Nobody verified anything. One guy goes out there and says, he's my business partner. He wasn't my business partner. Another guy goes out there and says, you know, I screwed him out of money on a Porsche. Well, you were going to get your title, and then you decided to overpay for something because you were impatient. The problem a lot of people have is they're impatient. They don't want to wait. We can sort it out. But when you run to the FBI, it ends all conversations. I wrote a letter to the reporter that was covering the entire story. And I sent the letter with details that they would know that it was only coming from me. And I said to him, look, I want to put this to bed. I can resolve this. They don't want to resolve it because it makes sense for them to arrest me and make this whole to-do. If they really are for clearing up this mess, then they should sit there and talk to me. They should talk to my lawyers. But they're not about cleaning up the mess. They're not about actually helping anybody. It's about padding the resume, beating their chest, and getting the headlines. And I'm not going down for somebody else. There's more to the story than meets the eye. The press put 2 lines of it in the news. That's all they did. My whole letter, they put 2 lines of it. All they said was the FBI read the letter and they can verify that the letter was from him. But they only put 2 lines of my thing in it. But they go on and do this whole, American Greed episode and completely destroyed me. So the state never filed any charges. Never filed. The state walked away from it because I didn't break any laws. All these people that made claims, I was never charged with anything. All the stuff that these people went on TV, on social media, on Yelp and everything that they claimed, no. The only thing I was charged with was what I said from day one. They charged me with 5 counts of wire fraud that said there was 5 cars sold, that they were financed, and those cars were sold, and the bank, TD Bank, is who financed them, and the TD Bank did not get the titles. But when they indicted me at first, they indicted me for $1.6 million. And I went online and I said, it's not 1.6 million because the FBI is so stupid. What they didn't do was actually look at the paperwork and say, wow, some of these cars are the $800,000 that's extra added on. They were cars that were sold to New York State residents. New York State residents, we sold those cars to people in July and August. New York State has up to 6 months to send the lien to the bank. I left the country in October. We filed the paperwork. The people got their the bank got their titles exactly when I said they would. But they put it out there that it was 1.6 million. And I kept saying it's 865, which could have been resolved, but now obviously it's a mess. Now it's a shit show, but okay. One thing I got to point out, you know who my victim is? TD Bank. Do you know what TD Bank has recently been accused of and actually found guilty of? Laundering money for the cartel. Billions of dollars. I go to prison. They don't go to prison. They launder money for drug cartels and they send me to prison for $800,000. But that's okay. We'll come back to that. Now, this cocksucker, U.S. attorney, he's a complete piece of shit, right? I mean, if you want to learn how to fuck up a case, you talk to him. So my lawyer's reaching out to him and say, Bobby wants to come home. He can put this matter to rest, but you need to go through it. So I broke down everything about the case and I gave it to my lawyer. My lawyer emailed it. The U.S. attorney responds, yeah, we're in receipt of your letter, but we don't agree with anything. So unless he's willing to plead guilty, we're not having this conversation. So my lawyer responds, what happened to due process? Now, this guy's such an idiot. He's actually putting this in emails, but then happens to go out there to court and says, oh, he was gone. He was MIA. We didn't say anything. We didn't do this. We didn't turn down his surrenders. I tried to offer my surrender over and over again, but 27 times. Emails after emails, my lawyer sent to the U.S. attorney.
I would just like verification on, is my husband in custody, or I just want to know what's going on with him.
Okay, why do you think the FBI has him?
He's been wanted by you guys for 5 years, and he's been trying to surrender for 4 years.
I got to the point where I was so fed up. You know how Donald Trump bashes prosecutors and FBI agents? Well, I did that before Donald Trump did.
Just look at what is now being exposed in our Department of Justice and the FBI. Look at what's going on.
Let me play a recording for you. I picked up the phone and I called the U.S. attorney myself and I recorded the conversation and I put it online so people don't sit there and think that I was full of shit. Because I'm telling you, these guys, they play games and they go, because they have the best PR in the world, they go out there and act like they're actually out defending the law and they're doing things the right way. Meanwhile, they play games. All he wanted was a guilty plea from me and I can come home. But if I want to go to trial, I can't come home. I thought we had due process in this country, and I'm an American citizen, so I'm entitled to it. I'm going to play an audio recording.
Andrew Kogan
is not available to take your call. Please leave a message after the tone. Press the pound key to end recording.
Andrew Kogan, this is Bobby Kahn. You've been looking for me for 5 years. You got an indictment with my name on it. And for the last year, my lawyer and you have been butting heads, trying to figure out a way for me to surrender. I want to surrender. I want to walk in an embassy tomorrow and hand myself over to you. I don't want anything. All I've asked multiple times is that you work a deal with the State Department and my lawyers to allow my handicapped wife and my 2 little girls to walk in with the embassy with me and surrender and come home so I could face you in court, face the charges, and go to trial. All I want is my day in court. That's all I want from you. You know my lawyer's contact information, James Parkman. You can pick up the phone, you can call him. I'll walk into an embassy tomorrow. You don't need to know anything else. We've given you all the information. We've sent you letters. I sent you a 7-page letter. My lawyer sent you multiple emails, multiple phone calls. Let's end this. If you have an indictment and you believe in this indictment, I want to come in. I want to face the music. I want to go to trial and let the best man win. I don't know what else I have to do. I've called you, begging you to arrest me. I want to walk into an embassy. You can put the cuffs on me, put me on a military jet, bring me home, and that's it. Enough of this. It's been 5 years. So let's put an end to this. And if you don't call my lawyer, that's just more proof that your case is weak and you don't want me coming home. And because I'm an embarrassment to you. So let's cut the bullshit. I'm here. I'm a fugitive, begging you to say, let's go. Let's go to trial. I want to come home and I want to face the music.
How many people will actually pick up the phone and call a U.S. attorney and say that? I did it. And I did it. I recorded it. I put it online. And that asshole had the balls to say, that never happened. But he didn't know I recorded it. I mean, it's his voicemail. It's the recording. You hear my message. I sent him a letter, which I'll put up on the screen. I sent a letter to him, and I basically lost it. I said, you have to be the world's dumbest U.S. attorney. You should be ashamed. And now I know why at age 50, you still work for the government instead of working at some white shoe law firm making $1 million a year. In my opinion, has to be the world's dumbest attorney. He stepped in shit. He thought I was just another immigrant that he was going to railroad. But then he found out that I'm not going to go down like that. I'm going to fight because I fight. So I handed my lawyers multiple deals. And I said, look at these deal jackets. Look at all the information. You know, if this was really fraud, you know, why would I pay somebody $80,000 when I owed them $90,000? Clearly, I was not committing fraud. You shut my business down so I couldn't make the final payment. So yeah, they're a victim for $10,000. Well, you guys made them the victim because by shutting me down, you made sure that I couldn't fulfill my obligations to people. So circumstance created some of these victims, which is if you would have left me open, I would have paid them. No one's committing fraud by saying, okay, you know what? Your car's $200,000, but I'm going to give you 180 of the $200,000. Well, I got to be the dumbest fraudster in the world. If fraud is, I don't pay you anything. I just took your car. But the thing is, I keep records. So my lawyer sentenced, look, this isn't fraud. This was his business. You know, failure is not fraud. The business failed. And that's not fraud. So here's the receipts. We sent them documentation, said, look at this, look at this, look at this. You know, all he would respond? Not interested, not interested. We don't agree with you. And countless emails would come back and forth with my lawyers This went on for ages. And every time my lawyer would offer surrender, nope, not interested. All he wanted to know, every time he'd respond, tell me where his location is. Because what he wanted to do is he wanted to arrest me and look like the hero, because he had egg on his face. Because I'm gone now at this point, 5 years, and he hasn't been able to catch me. And the whole, the FBI uses the same line in the Department of Justice, the long arm of the law will eventually catch up with him and we will find him. You're not going to find me. I outsmarted you. Okay? You're not getting me. And I'm trying to come home, but you don't want that, because if I come home on my own accord, it doesn't look good for you. You don't get the headline. So all he asked for, where's he at? I said, I'm not telling you my location of where I live. All I'm saying is, do you agree to these terms? And I'll come home. Because the one issue I had at that point was, because we overstayed our visa, they charge you a penalty. But what I asked them is, look, all you have to do is pick up the phone and call the United Arab Emirates and say, man there in this country is a fugitive wanted by the United States. We're taking him home. They would have instantly waived my fines and I would have gone. I wasn't asking you to pay my fines. I wasn't asking you. I was saying I don't have a passport because my passport is expired. My kids don't have a passport. I can't get a passport. I need your help to get me home. That's the only thing I was saying. I'm willing to come home. No conditions. Just let me home. My wife suffers from fibromyalgia and Lyme's disease, and she can't get medical care for 5 years because we don't have insurance. We can't go to a doctor. We're illegal immigrants. And this guy said, the prosecutor said to my lawyer, the family can burn in hell, not my problem. I just want him. I'm not going to leave my family behind. So at that point, I said, I'm done with him. I picked up the phone. I called the New York Times. I called the New York Post. I called all these press organizations. And you know what they actually said? Not interested. I said, hold on, I'm the FBI's most wanted fugitive. You don't want my story? No. I called my congressman, Jeff Van Drew. This cocksucker used to hit me up for donations. I was at a fundraiser one time. He moseyed up to my table asking me for donations. He was a Democrat back then. Then he switched over to be a Republican. I called him up and I said, I need your help coming home. I'm a constituent. I'm, from your area. His office responded with an email saying, we can't help you. We don't want to get involved. I called Bob Menendez. Figured Bob Menendez has had legal problems. He should know what it feels like. Bob Menendez's office, not interested in helping. So I went to Fox News. I said, Donald Trump watches Fox News. He's the president. I got charged under Obama's administration. Let me go. I record a 40-minute long interview with Fox News. But like everything, I don't trust people. So what I did was, while I was doing the interview, I had my wife recording the whole thing on the side. The camera was playing while my wife was sitting next to me. I recorded the whole interview. Fox News takes 1 minute of that interview and puts it out there and makes it seem like I'm asking the government to pay my fines and get me home. That's not what I was asking. So after 27 times of trying to surrender, with no luck, went on Fox News, no luck. The U.S. attorney wouldn't even respond to Fox News, wouldn't even give him a statement. So my lawyers at this point said, we're going to go over his head. We're going to go to other U.S. attorneys in other states to try to see if they can help get a surrender. That failed. So I said, you know what? I'm done. I went on. The rental car company guy, the real schmuck, he had a YouTube channel. He's got, I think, I don't know, a couple 100,000 followers and stuff. I used him. I went on his YouTube channel and said, how come I'm not in custody? Then I put the U.S. attorney's phone number out there and I said, call him. I said, if you want me in custody, I dare everybody out there to call this guy. And people started calling the U.S. attorney. Why is Bobby not in custody? Why is Bobby not in custody? And there was like a hashtag, bring Bobby home. I said, this doesn't happen. Like, no fugitive is out there saying, I want to come home. You're not going to let me home. So finally I said, we figured out, Stephanie went in with the kids to the UAE government's office and said, this is my situation. I need to go home. They waived all her fines. Great people. The people of the United Arab Emirates are amazing people. I love them. And they waived their fines. At this point, I'm public. Everybody knows where I'm at. I'm in Dubai. So her dad was able to send her an airline ticket and got her home. We liquidated everything we had once again. Got rid every 5 years we accumulated stuff, had to get rid of everything. I walked into an embassy and I took my cell phone out and recording. I said, I'm a fugitive from justice. I'm here to surrender. They told me, you can't. We're closed. Leave.
Recording.
Hey, boss. So what time tomorrow does the embassy open?
Embassy will open at 8 o'clock.
Okay. But tomorrow is Martin Luther King Day, so why is the embassy closed today?
Maybe
They want an extra day. Okay. So when I come in tomorrow, you can walk me through?
Yeah. Actually, I don't understand what is your case, but
Okay.
the citizen service
Yeah.
is between working between 1 to 3.
Okay.
1 up to 3 o'clock. But if
Okay.
you have any
All right, but there's be an American here that I can just talk to and we
Yeah.
can go in, okay?
yeah,
All right, I appreciate it. So I'll be there tomorrow. Thank you. Appreciate it.
the gate is there.
The first gate where
Yeah.
the Nissan Patrol is?
Yeah, there is the police vehicle.
Yep.
Same, there is gate.
So, okay.
Okay, so maybe
So
you
what-
can go from this gate or maybe another case. This
Okay.
is different on your case.
But on that gate, will there be like a U.S. Marine or somebody there? Or an American?
the American is inside.
Okay.
So we'll handle.
Okay.
We'll just pass the information to officer.
Okay.
So what is the case?
Perfect.
So they will.
All right, I'll see you tomorrow.
See you,
Thank
sir.
you. Appreciate it.
So 2 days later, I go back. I said, I want to surrender. They said, you can't do that here. I said, why not? They wouldn't let me in the embassy. I said, is this U.S. soil? Yes. I said, I'm a fugitive. I'm wanted by the FBI. After 4 hours of back and forth on the outside, one of the guys opens the window for the security office, and my picture's on the wall. I said, you see that guy up there? That's me. That's my wanted poster. I said, I'm a fugitive. Let me break it down for you. This is U.S. soil. Where's the FBI agents? Arrest me.
This is not long before we wound up coming home, but we were stuck between the fines for coming home because we were illegals. They charge you a certain amount per day. Okay. So our fines were like, I don't even remember, like, what was it? $150,000 for all of us. We couldn't pay that. We could barely get groceries. We couldn't pay that. We were at the point where we were literally just surviving. There was no life. We were living with the curtains closed all the time. The only place we went was out to go grocery shopping when we could. That was it. So after finding out that we had to pay these fines in order to go home, Bobby and I had a discussion that he felt the only way that me and the girls could go home were if he was dead. So we talked a lot. I may sound like a horrible person because I engaged in this conversation, but I'm also the type of person that is logical. And I have my 2 kids to think about. So we discussed it and we came up with a whole plan. He went to the store, he bought a rope. We talked about where he was gonna tie it, what he was gonna do. My daughter would go out in the morning every day to feed the cats first thing in the morning. I had to tell her, don't do that. I'll do it. All of that so that she wouldn't see him. And that whole day, I kept saying in my head to God, please intervene, please intervene, please intervene, over and over and over again. And that night, he looked at the website for the embassy. And they were going to be closed for the next 3 days. Nobody would have been able to help me with the embassy being closed for 3 days. So I take that as God intervened. I'm not ashamed of it. You know, all couples go through things that they don't talk about with other people. And people like to pretend that real shit doesn't happen. But it does. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people like us in numerous situations that have thought the same thing. There's only one way out. There's only one way to fix it. And that's literally the lowest you can be.